Okay, folks, welcome back to Battle for Azeroth. I wanted to make a little kind of tip guide, if you will, a little amended video to the State of Monk that I made that was in beta. I have had a chance to play around on Monk a little more now, and for the most part, my opinion, what I said in that video hasn't changed. There just were a couple of things that I wanted to kind of highlight about Brewmaster. I had heard that tanking in Battle for Azeroth was a little all over the place, a little sketchy, so I was a little apprehensive with was trying it out, and after leveling, after doing dungeons, after doing the Warfront, including the scenario, I've killed both rares and the world boss, the scenario, and then just doing world quests. I've had no trouble. I was pleasantly surprised. It's probably, of all three roles I've played, and I played all three roles leveling my monk, I probably had the least amount of trouble with Brewmaster. So at least with Brewmaster tanking, it's the only tank I've played so far, I had no issues. The stat squish hasn't seemed to affect it as much as it has with other roles, I'm noticing. I did get, with some world quests, some elites, I did get a little low on health, but I didn't die. So I have nothing but good things to say about at least the survivability aspect of Brewmaster, and that's not really paying attention to stats. I'm gearing for Mistweaver. I'm not gearing for Brewmaster per se. I've done some quests here and there to get different weapons, different trinkets, things like that, just so I was a little better geared to do things. I've mostly played Brewmaster for DPS. Leveling was a bit weird because Brewmaster has more survivability, Windwalker has more DPS, obviously. So I kind of went back and forth depending on what I was trying to do. Some rares out in the world you could do as Brewmaster, some you could do better as Windwalker, so it was just a matter of kind of switching back and forth. As far as the talents go, and this is kind of where I agree mostly with what I said in my video, my state of video on when I was on beta, when I was playing in beta. I wasn't sure about guard, and I think this is probably a must take. This definitely, I would say, is the default talent for this. I was so surprised. I think this is what I would guess this is what has given me the most survivability. It does have a 30-second cooldown. And my one complaint with Brewmaster is we don't have a reliable self-heal. Yeah, I think Expel Harm was supposed to do something similar to that. I'm not really getting the healing spheres. In long fights, I'll get maybe 1 or 2 charges with this. It's I don't know. It's strange. I don't know why they did this. The monks have Vivify, which is like the worst monk healing ability we could have. Yeah. So I would have taken almost anything other than this. So on Mistweaver, Vivify is your group heal. So yeah, doesn't look like it's a group heal for Brewmaster. I'm assuming the same goes for Windwalker. I hadn't really looked that close at it. Still, it's which I understand why they gave it to us. Shaman for their DPS specs have Healing Surge, which is the more expensive single target heal, but it is a single target heal. That's been my only complaint, really. I do have some healing potions. You do have fortifying brew, which has a 7-minute cooldown. Depending on what you're doing, you're trying to coordinate cooldowns, and that's where I said guard is it used to have 2 charges in its original state, as I remember. Yeah, as long as you can keep this, I pretty much keep this on cooldown in a dungeon, or if I'm doing a world quest where, as I said, I'm killing elites and I have to kill, X number of elites, and I'm in an area where I'm surrounded by NPCs, hostile NPCs. In a situation like that, I pretty much keep this on cooldown. Stagger doesn't seem to be as good as it used to be. I was disappointed. I keep these on cooldown. You're mainly going to be using guard, though. So if you run through your regular rotation, the stagger mechanic does help. You should be fine. I didn't have any trouble. Of course, from time to time, you will, overpull too much in a dungeon or something, and you will die, or some, you will be fighting an elite or something, and a mob will come wandering in or something, and you will end up dying, of course. But for the most part, if you're in control of what you're pulling, you can do quite a bit and live through it. So I've encountered some NPCs that had some strange abilities, I'll say, and I was able to survive through it. So the other thing I wanted to mention was Spitfire. It's supposed to have a 25% chance to reset every time you use Tiger Palm. The thing is, it doesn't always reset. In theory, okay, Tiger Palm has a 25% chance to reset the cooldown of Breath of Fire. So it doesn't say there is a cooldown built into it. Some abilities can only occur so many, every so many seconds. It doesn't say that. So in theory, if you use Breath of Fire and you use Tiger Palm 4 times, if I'm thinking of this correctly, if I'm understanding this correctly, it should reset Breath of Fire at least once. It doesn't. In fact, it seems completely random. I would guess it's more than 25%. Sometimes it will proc back to back. I've had it proc 2-3 times back to back, which is a little, since it's a dot, it's a little redundant. And the damage reduction does last for 12 seconds. It doesn't stun anymore. As I remember, if used on targets affected by your Cake Smash, it used to stun them for 3 seconds. That's what I remember. Even now, when I use it, I expect NPCs to be stunned. Instead, it deals 5% damage reduction for 12 seconds, which I don't remember it doing before. So, I mean, it does 1,200 fire damage, which is a decent amount considering where the stats are. It would be better if it procced like it was supposed to. If it was proccing every other Tiger Palm, because keep in mind, you're not just exclusively using Tiger Palm. I'm using Blackout Strike. That has a 3-second cooldown. Cake Smash, that has a 7-second cooldown. I might use Rushing Jade Wind just to keep threat on me, depending on what I'm doing. I'm using Guard. I'm using other abilities. So you're running through your global cooldown each time you use something else. So that's putting a second in between, another second in between every time in between your breaths of fire. So if you use them back to back, you're negating the damage over time effect, basically. And I would assume you're just reapplying the damage reduction effect. So it's a bit strange. I kept trying to work it into the rotation, thinking, am I not doing this right or something? And it's not proccing right. And then the flip side of that is I will use it 4 times, even more than 4 times, and it won't proc at all. It'll just come off cooldown, and I'll use it again. Then I'll use Tiger Palm, then it'll come off cooldown. Then I'll use Tiger Palm, and it'll come off cooldown again. So it's a bit strange how it works. It seems more random than 25%. And that's kind of, I feel like that's kind of, the base damage of 1,200 is good. It's not enough to use it. There's no benefit in spamming Breath of Fire over and over, from what I can tell. You're just starting back over again and again. It doesn't stack. The damage doesn't stack or anything like that. So it's a bit weird. I still think it's probably the best unless you wanted to take Black Ox Brew. I'm kind of on the fence with the brews, so I remember using Guard and then using Purifying Brew, and that would clear everything. I'm trying, since I don't play Brewmaster as a main spec. I usually always play it as an off spec, and I don't play it in a lot of instances and things like that usually, or PvP or anything like that. I try to withhold judgment because it's not my, at that point I feel like it's not my, it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I'm just on the fence with Iron Skin Brew and the way they have the brew set up now and everything. As I've said before, I prefer Brewmaster the way it was. I think it was before Legion, when you could dual wield and things like that. That for me was the big draw to it. My preferred tank would be Death Knight, Blood Death Knight. So I'm not one that has to use a shield and a weapon and all of that. I like kind of the idea of what dual wielding and tanking was. And I think it kind of lost something when they went with, no, you have to use a staff, which just seems kind of, not just a staff, you have to use your staff right side up. Because apparently that was a mistake. Like, legitimately, apparently it was a mistake for all the years it was in the game. That way we wore our staves upside down. I digress. So, yeah. So guard is surpassed my expectations, and Spitfire has somewhat disappointed me. That said, as I said, I haven't died. I haven't really been paying attention to my stats for tanking per se. I think having the versatility helps. I've got a couple things that have versatility on them. And the trinket is supposed to give me, it has an unused effect to give me armor. I've never even used that. I mean, that is the how much survivability I have with Brewmaster. I can't remember even. I just recently got this trinket, so I haven't really even had a chance to use that yet. I'm still wearing my legendary ring. I mean, if that tells you anything. So, yeah, critical strike probably helps. Yeah, I tanking. I don't care for parry. It's just a stat I just don't like. I just never liked it. I like dodge better. So I think the way I like to play, I think my play style's more goes with monk better than some other tanks. So yeah, so there you go. So overall, as I said, like I said, tanking so far, I have only played Brewmaster. I have not had any issues. There were a few dungeons I felt like I was fighting threat, and that was kind of what I heard was they changed. They yet again changed how the whole threat mechanic works. However, I was in a dungeon when I noticed these things. I was either in a dungeon with a hunter. So I'm wondering if they had pets. I'm wondering if they had growl on. Now I've been told that they put it into the game where growl automatically turns itself off. I'm not sure if that's true. I've been too lazy and absent-minded to look that up. All I know is consistently different dungeons, different people. When I felt like I was having issues, when I would go in and usually throw down Keg Smash, things were running right by me to the hunter. And then some groups, people were pointing out that the hunter, for whatever reason, was misdirecting to their pet, and that wasn't helping anything. There was one group where, and I didn't realize it till like halfway through, I was like, something is not right here. And the Death Knight in the group was in blood. Was supposed to be a DPS and was in blood. So that probably wasn't helping either. So every time I've had issues, I felt like I've been having issues with threat. There has been some reason that could have explained it. I don't know for sure that that's what it was. It's not really out in the world doing world quests, what have you. It's not an issue, so I'm not sure, honestly. So there you go, folks. There's a few tips and a little bit of my ranting and raving. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope that was helpful for you, and thank you for watching.